This is News 2. First, fast, accurate.
Projections are always dangerous because sometimes they can be wrong, but as you heard Chris Brungard tell us a few minutes ago, CNN and AP are now projecting Florida in Vice President Gore's column for this evening. If that's the case, our political analyst here to talk about it. Is it over if that happens?
Well, I kind of like the ABC projections that we're hearing that Bush may be ahead in
leading
Florida.
in Florida.
So I've always liked ABC's projections much better than the Associated Press. I said early on, I think if Florida goes, that it becomes very difficult for George Bush to win. I think if George Bush gets Florida, I think it becomes very difficult for Al Gore to win. So, as I've said, Pennsylvania and Florida may tell the tale early.
I think that you have to look at what the candidates were doing before tonight. And for people to say that Bush really didn't need Florida is some sort of special insanity. The people in Florida didn't know who their governor was, whether it was Jeb Bush or George W., because he spent as much time there as they did. Spent $5–6 million in ads. He needed Florida. He knew it. If the projection is right, then I think that it's not necessarily doomsday, but it certainly puts a step forward in the right direction for Al Gore. I just always want to remember that a little man in 1948 woke up, you know, and held up the paper, and he was the president of the United States, and the whole world said he was beat.
Well, from the Republican aspect of it, they should not feel totally dejected yet because they hold the lead in many more states. There is a scenario they can still win the presidency if they win the big states. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Missouri. It could still turn around.
Arkansas, Tennessee.
Yeah, if you put all that together, but they're almost to the point they've got to have it all to win.
On the opposite spectrum, if Vice President Gore doesn't win Florida, he has a tougher time winning.
No question. I agree with that.
I mean, it's a must-win state for both of these teams. That's
25 electoral votes.
That's why you've seen both of these campaign teams flocking down there like college students on spring break. I mean, they've been wearing out the roads down to Florida, and it's because Florida is critical, I think, to both of the campaigns. They can win without Florida, but it just becomes more difficult because there's not that many states that are still in play.
Back here in Tennessee, we're now projecting that U.S. Senator Bill Frist will win. Not a surprise, probably going to win by a 3-to-1 margin. Tennessee, we talked about it earlier. It's close, but it looks like it's going to go to Bush. Do you still think that, does this hurt that at all? Does this move momentum in a different direction?
I think Tennessee is going to go into the Bush column. I think when you look at the votes out of East Tennessee, when you look at the early votes, I think at the end of the day, the Bush campaign will carry Tennessee. Not sure it'll matter much in the Electoral College at the end of the day. It may be an embarrassment to Al Gore, but
Tommy,
I don't think it'll pull it out.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think, first of all, you know, the polls close at 7. There'll still be people voting at 8 and 8:30 because if you're in line,
party lines
you
here,
can stand there forever, right? I think that Al Gore can pull it out. I think that the communities that needed to be vitalized have been vitalized in the last 5 days, and they're going to vote Democratic.
And you guys haven't even finished voting all the dead people in Jamestown.
We're working later, guys. Let's go back to Brett.
All right, thanks, Bob. Again, we want to reiterate to you that the AP has declared Bill Frist the winner in the race for Tennessee Senator. Now back to ABC and the 2000 vote. Good night.
That Mr. Gore is the winner in Maryland. Now let's pause for just a few seconds now to let some stations join us as ABC 2000 continues. Let's pick up our projections again. I just told you that Maryland, the winner is Al Gore with its 10 electoral votes there, state where the registered Democrats outnumber Republicans, and Democrats hold both the governor's seat and both the Senate seats. We project that Mr. Gore is the winner in Delaware. This state has voted with the winner in every election since 1952. So it's the presidential bellwether state with the longest streak. And in the District of Columbia, also to no great surprise, we project that Mr. Gore is the winner in the District of Columbia. Now here's what the electoral vote count looks like so far. Mr. Gore taking a spurt there with that win in Florida and New Jersey. And Mr. Bush has 130 electoral votes. Mr. Gore has 101, and 270 are needed to win. That is what the big map looks like at the moment now. It looked in the final polls before the election much more red than blue, but remember that Mr. Gore's strength, now having picked up Florida, is on the East Coast. In the Northeast, New York is yet to be decided, and California as well. Now let's go back and look here now at Sam Donaldson with some Senate calls. Sam.
Well, Peter, a big win for the Democrats in Delaware. ABC News projects that the Democratic Governor Tom Carper has defeated the veteran incumbent Senator Bill Roth in Delaware. Age was the issue. Roth at 79 actually fainted twice during the campaign. As the football color man would say, that didn't help very much. In any event, we found that in Delaware, interestingly enough, 2 out of 10 voters made up their minds in the last week of this election, and most of them went for Tom Carper. More projections in Connecticut. ABC News projects that Joe Lieberman has retained his Senate seat there. Of course, if he wins the vice presidency, he'll resign that, and a Republican governor will undoubtedly appoint a Republican to that seat. In Maine, ABC News projects that Olympia Snowe, the Republican incumbent, retains her seat, beating the state Senate President Mark Lawrence. In Maryland, veteran Democratic Senator Paul Sarbanes retains his seat, according to our ABC News projection. He beat Paul Rappaport. In Massachusetts, Edward Kennedy has been in the Senate for 38 years, and ABC News projects, Peter, he'll be there another 6 years. He has beaten a Republican named Jack E. Robinson, who didn't put up much of a race, I may say. In Mississippi, the majority leader currently of the United States Senate, Trent Lott, has easily retained his seat, according to our ABC News projection, against Troy Brown. Lott spent $4 million. Troy Brown spent $47,000, but it probably wasn't the money that made the difference. In Tennessee, ABC News projects that the heart-lung surgeon, the incumbent Republican Senator Bill Frist, will retain his seat, having beaten Jeff Clark. In Texas, Kay Bailey Hutchinson, according to our ABC News projection, retains her Senate seat. She came in 1993 at the beginning of the Clinton administration when Lloyd Bentsen was made Secretary of the Treasury. And in Pennsylvania, ABC News projects that Rick Santorum, the incumbent Republican senator, has won re-election, defeating Ron Klink, the Democratic congressman from Pittsburgh. Peter.
Thanks very much, Sam. We're also able to make a presidential projection in the state of Michigan. ABC News now projects that Michigan has been won by Mr. Gore. Now, this was about as tough a presidential campaign as there was in the entire country. A combination of labor, Ralph Nader, the governor, the National Rifle Association. Terry Moran is down in Nashville. Terry Moran, I gather that this is going to be one that is going to warm the cockles of the Gore people's hearts as of now.
Absolutely, Peter. And while the plaza behind me here may be empty now because they're not going to let people in for another hour, there are lots of people lined up outside as these results, as we call these states, come in. You can hear the cheers from 100 yards away and feel the enthusiasm. I remember coming to Nashville back in May and having one of the top Gore strategists say, we are going to play and we are going to win in Florida. And at the time, I and a lot of other people considered that a bluff. They were serious about it. Joe Lieberman spent enough time in Florida to establish residency and vote almost. And in Michigan, there's no question that was about labor. Al Gore ran as a labor Democrat, and you could feel in the last days of this election the enthusiasm for the first time, almost a kind of physical affection for Gore as the standard bearer of labor in some of these big rallies. They did it for him in Michigan.
Thanks very much, Terry. Appealing George Stephanopoulos very much to the Democratic base, part of his populist campaign this year.
Absolutely. Michigan, 40% of the vote in Michigan came from union households, and they went about 60-30 for Al Gore. But it wasn't always easy for Al Gore. The head of the UAW, Steve Yokich, was very late in endorsing Al Gore. The head of the Teamsters was very late.
UAW did give them the day off today to go to vote, right?
They gave them the day off, and there are 900,000 union members in Michigan. It looks like it could have made the difference.
I wonder what this says early on, or maybe we're not sure what it says early on, about the emphasis on the National Rifle Association get out the vote for Bush in Michigan.
Well, it's true. That's been the big battle on the ground, the NRA versus the AFL-CIO, and 4 in 10 union members are actually sympathetic to the NRA. The next state to watch for that battle is Pennsylvania, also a strong gun state. But it does look right now, at least in Michigan, like most of the union members voted their job and their paycheck and their health care over their right to hunt.
Cokie Roberts, comment on Michigan?
Well, that gun issue is really very interesting. The fact that Gore won Michigan, despite the fact that there was tremendous effort on the part of the NRA. Same kind of effort going into House races all over the country, Peter, where we've seen just millions of dollars spent by all kinds of groups. But the NRA has been very active in House races. Curious to see how it plays out as the night wears on.
Exactly. We're just assuming at the moment that the labor unions in Michigan have outworked the National Rifle Association there, but we'll look at our exit polls to see a little later on what people said who come from households in which guns are a big issue, and more than half the households in America actually have guns, or more than half the people in America have guns. And when we come back, we'll talk to Lynn Shure about how Florida went for Mr. Gore as well. But 2 big battleground states, Michigan and Florida, going to Mr. Gore at about 10 after 8 Eastern time tonight. We'll be right back.
Tonight Democracy Meets the Information Age as Peter Jennings and ABC News lets you interact live with ABC's Election 2000. Log on to abcnews.com now and click on the Enhanced TV logo for real-time interactive television. Let your voice be heard on ABC's Enhanced TV. This ABC News special is being brought to you by Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Looking to save more and spend less this holiday season? With the Jeep Holiday Sale, you can do just that. Because now, when you buy a 2000 Grand Cherokee with low 0.9 financing, you can save up to $53.25 in finance charges. Or on a 2001 model, save up to $29.39 in finance charges with 4.9% financing. So take advantage of the Jeep Holiday Sale today for savings that let you spend more on a real holiday priority, yourself. Check one out at your Jeep dealer.
Where do you find inspiration? What if the things you do every day could be done with tools so instinctive, using them would be like riding a bike? If technology became your silent partner, imagine what you could imagine. We believe it's time to move beyond information technology to inspiration technology. Welcome to the new IT from Compaq.
Your vote and your money. Once the race is over, what will happen on Wall Street? How the election could impact your savings on Good Morning America tomorrow.
ABC this Wednesday is a great night of television when this woman gets to the top.
$1 million.
On Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Then the Drew Carey Show's coming to you.
5 seconds, Drew.
Live.
I better get into my costume.
And on Spin City.
You want a piece of me?
Charlie Sheen gets the fastest finger from Regis Philbin.
Afraid you might get your dress dirty, Alice? Huh?
Then, before you see a doctor.
Did you care about this patient? Yes. Then why don't you fight for him?
See this Gideon's Crossing. ABC Wednesday, a great night of television. This ABC News special, the 2000 vote, continues. Once again, Peter Jennings.
Welcome back to our coverage of this very exciting election. We're going to talk in just a minute about the Electoral College because I got people all around me at the moment here now trying to put these models together of how one man gets to 270 and whether either man can get above 300 electoral votes. But first of all, we talked about guns. Let's go to Lynn Scher. Lynn, in Michigan, the gun issue.
It was such a big issue there, Peter. As you say, Charlton Heston was there. The NRA tried to make a very big issue out of it. But according to our exit polling, 55% of those today in Michigan said they prefer gun control. And of them, Al Gore got 69% of their votes. So it really cut for him.
Now, Florida. How did Mr. Gore put Florida together?
Two very traditional Democratic votes, Peter. One was blacks. In 1996, Bill Clinton got a 10% black turnout. This year, Al Gore got 16% in Florida. How did they vote? Let's take a look. 94% of them voting for Al Gore. Only 6% of the blacks today voting for George Bush. And there's another traditional Democratic group there, and that's women voters in Florida. How did they turn out? 56% of the female voters voted for Al Gore, only 42% for George Bush. When you look at those numbers, keep in mind that George Bush won the men's vote, but only by 8 points. So clearly Al Gore scoring very big there. Peter?
On the national level, a tremendous gender gap. We saw it all through the campaign, and we think it's going to even be bigger tonight based on what we're seeing so far than it was actually during the campaign. One note about Florida, I said that some of the polling places had been ordered or allowed to stay open longer than anticipated. In Broward County in Florida, which has already gone to Mr. Gore, still House races to be decided, only letting people who were in line at 7 p.m. So there was no particularly legal issue in there. Now we're going to talk to our resident historian, Michael Beschloss, who's with us on all of these occasions. He's in Washington tonight. Michael, I'm always wanting to test you. Let me test you a little bit here on close elections. 1960.
1960 is the classic, Peter. You know, tonight is the first presidential election in my lifetime, my adult lifetime, where I didn't know at the beginning of the evening who was going to win that election. The classic of this was 1960. John Kennedy and Richard Nixon, very close. At this point in the evening, believe it or not, one of the networks, not ABC, predicted that Nixon would be the victor by 100 to 1. That shows you how primitive the technology was in those days. But what was happening there was that there was a big break to Kennedy at the end, and it happened from two things. Number one, bad economic news. Number two, Dwight Eisenhower, the most popular man in America, had been campaigning for Nixon, really helping him. Nixon pulled him off the campaign trail, said, "General, it might strain your heart." That probably lost Nixon that election.
Now, I recall in 1968, when there was a third-party candidate in George Wallace, the election didn't get called at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Didn't get called until very late. And we were worried that year about the Electoral College, too, because there was the great possibility that Richard Nixon and Hubert Humphrey might not get enough votes to get above 270, and the man who would hold the balance would be George Wallace of Alabama, and that Nixon and Humphrey might be put into a position where they'd have to make a deal with George Wallace to win the presidency.
Now, when presidential candidates have been out campaigning for that one last vote for that one last hour this year, they've been talking about 1976.
1976, Gerald Ford against Jimmy Carter. Into that election, people were saying that Gerald Ford had made back his 33-point lag behind Jimmy Carter in the summer. Many said that if Ford had gone on a day or two, he could have won that election. It was heartbreakingly close. He didn't declare that he had been defeated until the next morning, as we're seeing on the screen. His voice was very hoarse. I think we're probably seeing it right here. He calls on Betty Ford, his wife, to actually read his telegram to Jimmy Carter.
Many thanks. Oh, sorry. Just hearing his voice there. Thank you, Michael. I'm going to come back to you in just a moment, if I may, and talk about the Electoral College. But let's go to our political director first, Mark Halperin. What are you doing over there in trying to figure out the computations? Al Gore's now won Florida and Michigan. Pennsylvania's to come of the three big three. If he wins the big three of these battleground states, does that put him up to 270?
It gets him really close. It gets him really close. You know, Florida is a state that Governor Bush counted in every calculation we've talked about. His brother being the governor of Florida. We've talked about it being a Republican state at the presidential level. And yet, adding it to Al Gore's column gives him a really big leg up. They're really focused on Pennsylvania now, the third of the big three that we've not called for him. If they have those three, assuming they win the other big state in California, which they've been counting on all along, which we've not called, of course.
How close was Florida? How close was California in the final polls? Do you remember?
It got tight in some of the public polls. The Democrats were very confident coming in. Of course, Governor Bush campaigned there at the end, spent money there. But if he's able to win California, Florida, Michigan, if they're able to win Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, those are big states. And that gets him real close to 270. Not all the way there, though, by any means.
One of the reasons we'll come back and talk about the Electoral College before too long. George Stephanopoulos, you want to add to this?
Well, that's what's so astonishing here. I mean, I would have never thought a month ago that a candidate could win the big three states and still be in danger of not winning the Electoral College. But even if they win those big three states, they still have to win one of New Mexico, Iowa, Wisconsin, Oregon, Arizona, or Colorado. None of those are sure things. So again, we're going back to those states I talked about earlier, the Dukakis Six, places like Iowa and Wisconsin. Sure things for Democrats in the past, not a sure thing for Al Gore now, and that could be the difference.
George, take a look at the map, the big national map at the moment, because we're already beginning to see a fill-in of the red for the Republicans in the South, with the exception of Florida there. And as we look before the campaign ended, it was very Republican in the South now.
And still is. It almost looks like, you look at the Mason-Dixon line, you're going to see a lot of blue above it, a lot of red below it. And the big one there, of course, is Tennessee. Tennessee and Arkansas, the home states of Vice President Gore and President Clinton. If Al Gore can't win Tennessee, he'd be the first candidate since 1972, George McGovern, not to win his home state.
Okay. I want to go back to Michael Beschloss in Washington. Michael, give us the absolute simplest version, if you would, to start with, on why the Electoral College.
Well, when the founders were trying to create this system, they were worried about a couple of things. They were worried that this would be a union that ignored the states. They also, at the beginning, there were a few million people with very great transportation and communications difficulties, and they were also against popular will. They didn't want there to be a direct vote by the people for president. They thought that might be too dangerous. So the result was that they had this Electoral College system, and the rap against it is that it overrepresents rural states. You can have faithless electors. It's against the popular will. But we're also seeing something tonight, and that is that it also compels a presidential candidate to pay attention to a state like Florida, to go down there educate himself about local issues in a way that he probably would not if there was a case in which you had simply a popular vote.
You use just one word that I think people are not always clear about, which is this word dangerous. In a couple of seconds, did the founders believe it was dangerous to give the vote to the common man, or that dangerous the common man wouldn't be fully informed about elections?
They thought that both of those things were dangerous. They were very much for representative democracy. They wanted some kind of intermediary. That was the Electoral College.
Okay, thanks, Michael. We'll be back to you before long. Take a look at our national map now. Mr. Bush has 130 electoral votes. Mr. Bush has 119. As George Stephanopoulos said, look at the red there. Look at that blue in Florida. Mr. Bush, Mr. Gore has won in Florida. We're going to break for a few minutes to let ABC News stations all across the country get you up to date on your local news. I'm Peter Jennings. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll stay with us.
Whoever wins tonight will surround themselves with top advisors. Shouldn't you? Move your money. Get well connected.
Looking to save more and spend less this holiday season? With the Chrysler Holiday Sale, you can do just that. Because now you can save over $2,300 when you buy a new 2001 Town & Country with 4.9% financing. Or choose a $299 lease on the award-winning 2001 Chrysler Voyager. So take advantage of the Chrysler Holiday Sale today for savings that let you spend more on a real holiday priority, yourself.
Welcome, analysts. This was a challenging fiscal year for the company. Due to unpredictable weather, earnings are down. Welcome, analysts. But as everyone knows, you can't predict the weather. There's nothing you can do about it.
She graduated from Radcliffe. She wrote 13 books, met 13 presidents, and toured vaudeville. She won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She was deaf and blind. Her name, Helen Keller. Coming to ABC, The Miracle Worker, Sunday 7, 6 Central.
First, fast, accurate. News 2's coverage of the 2000 vote continues now.
Hope you had a chance to vote today. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Mueller.
And I'm Brett Lee. Welcome to our continuing coverage of the 2000 vote. We will be here all evening long at 22 and 52 after the hour with extended coverage at 10.
It is all about electoral votes. We want to show you the map of ABC News projections for Vice President Gore and for Governor Bush. 130 to 119. In red are the states projected to go for Texas Governor George W. Bush, mainly in the South, except Tennessee. It has not yet been declared. Louisiana and Arkansas still not yet declared. For Vice President Gore, the two big wins being projected by ABC News, Florida and Michigan. Pennsylvania still not yet in. That's the next big one to be declared.
Also, another race that Tennesseans are keeping a close watch on tonight, of course, is the U.S. Senate race. We are told that incumbent Bill Frist is now in the lead. In fact, ABC is projecting that Bill Frist will be the winner over Democrat Jeff Clark. And there are several other statewide elections and races going on today.
Let's go to News 2's Ann Holt, who's over in this part of the studio. Ann?
Well, Bob, as you said, there are some key state Senate races that bear watching. Tommy Burnett, Steve Gill are here to help me keep up with those tonight. First of all, the Democrats control the Senate 18 to 15. The race in District 16, Howard Wall, Larry Trail, GOP's best shot at regaining power of control.
Well, it's an open seat, and that would give them the best shot. Rutherford County is growing very quickly, and I think that gives some hope that Howard Wall can take the seat that's been held by Andy Womack, who's retiring. That's a tough, tight, bitter race, and I think it's too close to call.
It is a tight race, but historically speaking, Rutherford County in that area is a strong Democratic area. I mean, it's the area of a John Bragg, of a Rooker. I do not see y'all capturing that seat.
I think it could happen. The tax issue's been big down there.
Let's try and get one more in before we have to go. Joanne Graves and Farrell Hale.
Again, the tax issue has been huge in that race. Both candidates accusing the other of not being good enough in their opposition to the income tax. Farrell Hale has a chance at picking that one up. Again, it depends on whether those votes came out of Hendersonville or not.
She ran one of the best races of any senatorial candidate in the state. I see no way for her to lose her race.
We're going to get some numbers in a few minutes. We'll see which one of you is right. Bob, Brett?
We'll have to talk to Steve about that tax pledge issue a little later, too. Thanks, Ann. Well, deep in the heart of Texas, George W. Bush is watching the returns roll in, probably not liking him at this point.
This is true. And News 2's Jay Korf is live in Austin with more on how the evening is unfolding down there. Jay?
Well, right now, Brett, Senator Phil Gramm is on stage talking to a crowd that has ballooned to probably at least 5,000. They're really on an emotional roller coaster tonight, and their mood has gone for a dive and then gone up every time they see the results in the polls. Obviously, most of the political pundits were correct. This is a race that is coming down to the wire, and that leads some to think, could Bush possibly win the popular vote and Gore win the electoral vote? That hasn't happened since 1888, and the winner in that race was Benjamin Harrison. One final point to make. Before I left from Nashville, talked with a Vanderbilt political scientist, and he said that at this crucial point, swing voters will tend to go one way or the other, Democrat or Republican. They don't go down the middle. So it'll be interesting to see who picks up those swing voters. Right now, we're going to go to Dan McDonald at the Wild Horse Saloon to find out how the Tennessee Republicans are viewing what's been happening. Dan?
Well, Jay, they're still kind of confident, but, I'm standing by with Patty Saliba. She is an elector, which means she was chosen by the party. If George Bush carries the state of Tennessee, you're going to go to the Electoral College and cast your vote. How nervous are you right now?
I'm very nervous. I think it's important for this nation that they elect a person like Bush with character, integrity, and I think it's important to our future. And I'm excited about being an elector. You hear about that all your life, and I would say 95% of the population really do not understand the Electoral College.
We tried to explain it last night. I hope we did an okay job of doing that. The party leadership here believes that Bush is going to carry the state of Tennessee. Why do you think that is? Why would Al Gore lose his first race in Tennessee in his political career?
Well, I have my opinion. A lot of us have followed Al Gore's career ever since he was a congressman. And if you look at his record over the years, there's a pattern there that he is not in step with the Tennesseans. Tennesseans are really conservative, real family-oriented, and very patriotic, and not tax us to death is not what we want.
Patty, thank you very much for your time. Those electors, those mysterious people, well, they do exist. We just interviewed it and proved it. Back to you in the studio.
Dan, you heard Brett talk earlier. Senator Bill Frist been declared the winner. Is he there yet? Is Senator Thompson there yet? Governor Sunquist? Any of the other high-ranking Republicans? Have you seen him in the crowd yet?
Senator Frist has been here all evening, Bob. He's been upstairs having a private party with his family. We're expecting him to come down and make his victory speech, and he knew it was going to be a victory speech. He scheduled it a week ago. That'll happen about 7:52, and Senator Thompson has arrived here, and he's doing some network interviews, and we're hoping to talk to him a little bit later.
It's good to be confident.
Yes, it is.
Thanks, Dan. Well, big crowds are expected tonight around downtown Nashville for Al Gore's appearance later.
That's true. News 2's Kate Merrill is out around the perimeter of Legislative Plaza tonight, where I am sure there is a lot of activity going on right now. Kate?
Brett, that's right. The excitement is really building here, and we're just outside the perimeter, right in front of the Sheraton here, and this is why this place is ground zero, because this has really been the mainstay for the media and for political supporters. And as you can see down Union Street, people are really beginning to arrive here. They're waiting to be let in at the 8 o'clock hour into Legislative Plaza. As you can see, take a look, there's the risers. If you can kind of see through the trees there, that's where the media is. Randy, if I can get you to show where the media is positioned right now, that is where all those reports you see are coming from, national, local media. And we want to take you inside Legislative Plaza. Take a look what it looks like inside right now. It is very quiet. Only people in there are politicians walking around, media, and people rally supporting. Back here live, people are waiting to get in. All those people are waiting to get into Legislative Plaza. And we will be here. Back to you in the studio.
We'll see you throughout the evening. Thanks, Kate.
Well, we'll see you back here at 7:52. Until then, let's go back to ABC and Peter Jennings, who is live in New York.
Looking for appliances? Then look no further than Sears. Sears is the only place that carries all 6 top brands. Emphasis on the word only. And hey, if by chance you find a lower price somewhere else, we'll match it, guaranteed. And with over 70 years of experience, why look anywhere else? So the next time you need appliances, come to Sears. The good life at a great price, guaranteed.
Don't you wish they'd build a place where it's easy to save money? Well, that was quick.
You have an MVP card, Lou?
Yes, I do.
What's so good about it? I mean, is it...
It's a savings. I mean, really.
It kind of gives me the same deals as coupon shopping. So just by having a keychain, actually.
Are they just fooling you to say, oh, you've saved $16?
No, I've checked that, and I know there's real saving.
Now, is that money that you would just ordinarily just rip up and throw away anyway?
Absolutely not.
No, it's useful to you.
Yes, very useful.
Save useful money, come to Food Lion. That's what MVP is all about.
Watch Brett Lee at 10 p.m. only on News 2.
This is an ABC News special, The 2000 Vote. Now reporting from New York, Peter Jennings.
Welcome back to our Election 2000 coverage. We're waiting in one respect for one more shoe to drop, and I'll explain in just a moment, but it's 8:30, and the polls have now closed in one more state, and that state is Arkansas, and we believe that in Arkansas it is now still too close to call. Arkansas, the president's home state, Mr. Bush said just before the end of the campaign he was going to win it. Mr. Gore has tried hard. Mr. Clinton tried hard as well, but it is currently too close to call. So take a look at the map, because that's really is what it is all about, with 270 electoral votes needed to win. And you've heard us talk endlessly throughout the campaign about the big three of Florida and Michigan and Pennsylvania. Florida goes to Mr. Gore, Michigan goes to Mr. Gore, and Pennsylvania is too close to call. The rest of those red states, which are Governor Bush's states, projected by us at the moment, are states in which he was, for the most part, expected to win. There's been no great surprise in any of those. Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Maine, up there in the northeast corner, are still too close to call. But Maine and Arkansas and Missouri, of course, and Wisconsin, which we haven't called yet, all factor very importantly into trying to put a combination of these 270 electoral votes together. And while Mr. Gore has won in Florida and in Michigan now and got a big boost up to 119 electoral votes as of now, he very, very much needs Pennsylvania. I want to go first to Lynn Scherr, because I think, Lynn, by looking at the exit polls, you can tell us why Pennsylvania is proving such a struggle.
We certainly can, Peter. And the way we're going to do it is by showing you what Mr. Gore's strengths are and what Mr. Bush's strengths are. And that will make you understand why this one is absolutely too close to call. Let's first take a look at the numbers for Al Gore. Those who are supporting him big time include union voters, a third of the vote, 59% going for Al Gore today. Another very important group, those who say Social Security is their most important issue, 66% for Al Gore. Finally, those over 65 years old, about a quarter of the voting population in Pennsylvania today, 58% going for Al Gore. Okay, those are big numbers, but now let's take a look at the numbers for George Bush, because they're equally big on his side. First of all, white Protestants. They make up about half of the voting population in Pennsylvania today, 64% for George W. Bush. Those who say taxes is an important issue, a huge number voting for George Bush today. And finally, those who live in the suburbs. This is a group everyone's been fighting for. This is the volatile, the new group, and the Republicans and the Democrats going for them, 52% going for George Bush. So you see, these two sets of numbers really balance each other. Peter, I don't know who's going to come out ahead.
Well, Peter, that's right. The Tom Ridge could have been picked with Governor Bush, but he wasn't, and a lot of people thought that was a mistake. But Pennsylvania, even though thought it was going to be a good state for Al Gore, now it does look kind of tough. And Peter, James Carville used to, sorry about that. James Carville, President Clinton's former strategist, used to call Pennsylvania Pittsburgh and Philadelphia with Alabama in between. There's a long conservative stretch in Pennsylvania, but the big cities still go Democratic, and that looks to be part of the fight tonight. We'll be back in a minute.
We were worried the computers would go down. It's the microphone.
We'll be back in 1 minute.
Take the ABC News American Election Challenge. Which state elected the first woman United States Senator? Virginia, Alaska, California, Arkansas. In a moment, the answer. This ABC News special is being brought to you by Merrill Lynch.
My
My great-great-grandmother, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, believed that the vote was the tool by which all of the rights are gained. She's provided the shoulders on which women could stand higher. And I think that's a great legacy. What I like about working with Sally Regan of Merrill Lynch is that she shares these ideals, and she believes in helping women achieve their financial freedom. Susan B. Anthony had a great statement. Every woman must have a purse of her own.
The all-new responsive Chrysler Sebring Performance Sedan. Proof that it's not the destination. It's the drive. Now, during the Chrysler Holiday Sale, lease the Sebring LX sedan for $259 a month.
This Sunday night, they're back. The all-new Millionaire Celebrity Edition, ABC Sunday, 9/8 Central.
Coming to Dharma and Greg. The big birth of Dharma's little brother.
I helped deliver a baby in heels.
Then the big baby naming episode. Let's name him... This could be anything.
Sunshine Space Tweezers.
No! But first, they've always been from different worlds. But this...
You cannot join the army.
...is their biggest challenge.
Dharma, there's nothing to talk about.
Next Tuesday, 9/8 Central on ABC.
The answer to the ABC News American Election Challenge. In which state was the first woman elected United States Senator is Arkansas. Hattie Caraway was elected in 1932. She was from Jonesboro, Arkansas. Once again, Peter Jennings.
But tonight, the presidential election in Arkansas is still too close to call. My mic indeed did go dead. Thank you, George. 7 or 8 people willing to do that job right at that moment. Before we go to Cokie Roberts, I want to talk to Dean Reynolds, who's down in Nashville, Tennessee. Or rather in Austin, Texas, because Dean, before tonight, the Bush people were very confident. How confident were they about Florida and about Michigan?
Well, they were confident in that they told us they were going to win them. But I thought that over the last few weeks, they realized that Florida was not going to go their way. And Michigan, they thought that they could win, but they also knew it was going to be a fight. Now, they are telling us this evening that, well, we don't need Michigan and we don't need Florida, that we have all sorts of calculations to achieve the 270 votes. But it must be galling, Peter, for them to have invested so much time in both states, to say nothing of the fact that the governor's brother, Jeb, is the governor of Florida, and they still lost them.
Well, the Governor Bush spent, what, 18 days in Michigan, 17 days in Florida. Do they really believe in the final analysis that Jeb Bush was going to make the difference? In many states, the governor didn't get as much credit as perhaps he got in the public.
Well, all along, Florida was one of the key pieces to their electoral puzzle. I mean, this is a shocking defeat for them in Florida tonight. There's no question about it. And in Michigan, again, John Engler was supposed to erect another firewall. And as happened in the Michigan primary, Governor Bush ran right into the firewall.
And ran into John McCain. Thanks very much, Dean Reynolds, which takes me to Cokie Roberts. The McCain factor is the first time it's come up this evening.
It is, but you know, an interesting thing, Peter, that happens in congressional races. John McCain has been in 70, that's 70 congressional districts in this campaign year, just working unbelievably hard for Republican congressional candidates. One of those districts was in Connecticut, working against the Democratic incumbent, Jim Maloney, for Mark Nielsen. It looks like Maloney is winning that district tonight because coattails are probably stronger than John McCain is. And Al Gore is winning Connecticut with Joe Lieberman, the senator from there. The two endangered Democrats in Connecticut are probably okay. Similarly in North Carolina, endangered Republican incumbents, but it's a state where George Bush, we've given the state to George Bush. Those Republican incumbents, Charlie Taylor seems to be winning there. But again, in that other North Carolina race, where the incumbent is doing all right. McCain made an ad for him. So John McCain's coattails might be something to look for in 2004, Peter.
And thanks, Cokie. We'll try to get a handle on the Nader factor, too. There's been a lot of talk about the Nader factor in the West, in Washington and Oregon particularly, but he campaigned very vigorously in Michigan as well. Sam, you have a Senate call.
Big call from the state of New Jersey. ABC News projects that John Corzine, the Democrat, has retained that seat for the Democrats. Frank Lautenberg was retiring. He's defeated Bob Franks. Corzine is the former CEO of Goldman Sachs. He poured over $52 million of his own money into this race. Franks made a big deal of this. Franks spent $4 million. And we know from our exit polls, Peter, this is very interesting, that there was concern over Corzine's spending, but the concern was equally divided. And in the end, people decided clearly by our exit polls that only 1/4 were very concerned and the rest voted for Corzine.
Thank you, Sam. Which brings up another set of coattails. In this Senate race, George Stephanopoulos, Corzine tried to connect Bob Franks, Congressman, to Newt Gingrich. We haven't heard Newt Gingrich's name before tonight. Played up and down in the election.
Haven't heard too much about it on the national level, in part because George W. Bush did a very good job early in the campaign last summer in distancing himself from the Republican Congress. Mrs. Clinton tried it here a little bit, though, against Rick Lazio here in New York. So Newt Gingrich is starting to fade, I think, in part because of the leadership example George W. Bush set.
Now, John McCain, and this and also for Mark Halperin, our political editor as well, but you first, George, the issue of campaign finance reform, big issue for McCain. Corzine, very big money in the campaign. People at the end of the campaign seem pretty cynical to me that campaign finance reform is still not going to be a telling issue.
Is not going to happen, even though Al Gore has promised that the first bill he would bring up if elected is the McCain-Feingold bill. The question is, I think you were talking about the Nader factor earlier. Were any of his voters drawn by this issue of campaign finance? He had a very strong anti-corporate, anti-special interest message. That's one of the things we'll have to look for later.
But if Al Gore were to win this election tonight, and it were close, wouldn't he be under tremendous pressure from all other Democrats not to go ahead with campaign finance reform?
Well, I don't think he can get away without doing McCain-Feingold after making it his #1 promise. And, of course, he'll have the support of John McCain if he does.
Our political director, Mark Halperin, John Corzine winning on money. There were other issues, but money, Bob Franks tried to make money the issue in the final days of the campaign. Campaign finance reform?
You know, a lot of rich candidates have run and lost. Corzine had a big advantage, spent so much money in a state that's so expensive to run in. You know, George is right. Al Gore, if he won, would have to introduce this bill. Cite a colleague of ours, Ron Brownstein of the LA Times. People like the way the country's going to some extent. They don't like the way Washington works. John McCain ran on that, a big deal. I think Al Gore will say this is a way to clean up the way Washington works, and I think that has some appeal.
It may be that I missed it from Lynn Shure, but I might ask Lynn Shure to work for just a moment now on this question of the direction of the country. Fresh start, which George Bush has argued throughout the campaign, or you know, these are great times, why change horses in midstream, as Mr. Gore argued. We're going to be able to project now the state of Maine, way up there in the Northeast. We project that Mr. Gore is the winner in Maine. Only 4 electoral vote, as we said. We thought Ralph Nader was a factor up there. We thought he'd work against Mr. Gore. One of the questions about Mr. Nader throughout the latter days of the campaign as to whether or not he could be convinced by a lot of his former supporters who'd asked him to stop making such an effort to take away votes from Mr. Gore. Mr. Nader resisted, but it has not made a particular difference in Maine. 92 and 96, Maine was Ross Perot's best state, so it's a little hard to tell at the moment what the independent vote up there has meant. Sam, on this issue of money, do you see anything as you walk around Washington? How much pressure is there within the political establishment for campaign finance reform, let alone it's been an issue on the stump?
Peter, I've got to tell you, everybody says they're for it. Everybody says that we should do it. But when you talk to individual members, they sort of like, most of them, of course there are obviously exceptions, the present system. Mitch McConnell, the Republican who heads the Congressional Campaign Committee in the Senate, is a dedicated foe of it. Trent Lott is a dedicated foe of it. If the Republicans retain the Congress, my guess is that we'll talk about it some more. But we're not going to have a very major bill. Okay. Peter, because one thing is, if you take the money out of it, we're all for that. Who pays for the television time? Who pays for the expenses? How do you do it? Do we go to taxpayer finances? Should I ask the taxpayers out there, you want to finance all the federal elections out of your own pocket? Maybe, but that's the problem. You can't replace something with nothing.
Okay, Sam, thank you very much. The Democratic National Committee tells us they're trying in Wisconsin, New Mexico, and Little Rock to keep polls open. They're just trying at this point. They haven't succeeded. George is an obvious answer for that one.
Well, what they want to do, obviously, is get their turnout out at the last minute. And this is an acceptable remedy under most state laws. We're not sure where they're going to succeed, where they won't, but it's certainly legal.
Okay, thanks. We're able to make a call in New Hampshire in the governor's race now. This is not, as said, an enormous surprise. We now project, ABC News does, that in New Hampshire, Governor Jeanne Shaheen, the incumbent governor, she's seeking a third two-year term, has been re-elected. She was mentioned as a vice presidential possibility for Mr. Gore. She's running against Gordon Humphrey, who established quite a reputation for himself as a conservative when we were in the Senate. Lynn Sherr, on this question of money, I can't remember whether we asked in the exit polls whether money was a big issue in campaign finance for people.
We didn't ask it overall, Peter. We asked it in a few individual states, including New Jersey, as Sam reported. And as he pointed out, the voters didn't seem to care that much that Jon Corzine had spent all that money.
And Michelle Martin joins us from Washington, because, Michelle, we should not be surprised that people were motivated to give so much money with so much at stake in the election beyond the presidential race.
Absolutely, Peter. If you want to know why this is such an expensive race, there are two main reasons. One is, of course, soft money. Those are the large, unlimited contributions that corporations and unions can give to the political parties directly. They're not allowed to give to the individual candidates, which are supposed to be used for party-building activities. But the second reason is expenditures by outside interest groups. Those are groups like the National Rifle Association, the National Abortion Rights Action League, and those groups started fundraising very early because they sensed that there was a lot at stake. Not only the presidential race, but control of Congress and arguably the Supreme Court. These groups were very motivated. And in fact, I talked to Kate Michelman earlier today, the head of the National Abortion Rights Action League, and she said that they started advertising in 1999 when they thought that George Bush would even be the front runner because they wanted to define him early.
Many thanks, Michelle. It's also true the parties like to recruit people who will finance themselves. Jon Corzine in New Jersey, Maria Cantwell in Washington. We're not close to calling the races in Washington at all, but there's a very tight Senate race up in the state of Washington, and Maria Cantwell has very largely financed her own campaign. Take a look at the national map, just lest we never forget exactly how close this is at the moment. We've lost our map for a second. Now, there it is, back again. In the presidential race so far, these are the states which have been won. Those in red, won by Mr. Bush. Those in blue, won by Mr. Gore. Those in white, still too close to call, and the ones in yellow, of course, in the rest of the country, those where the polls have not yet closed. Want to go to Capitol Hill because ABC's Linda Douglas is on Capitol Hill this evening just to give us a feel of what it's like in assumedly that very empty place tonight.
Well, certainly leading up to all of this, it's a state of high anxiety, Peter. The Republicans, who, of course, control the Congress, control both houses in the Congress, are counting on an all-Republican government here in Washington. It's making them very anxious to see Gore doing as well as he is doing. They've made a lot of plans, which we can certainly talk about later on this evening, about how to govern with a President Bush. There is a lot of resistance to governing with a President Gore. Many of the staffers and members of Congress that I've talked to over the last several days say that Gore has very poor relations up here with Republicans on Capitol Hill. So there's a lot of hand-wringing, as you can imagine.
I much appreciate it. Cokie Roberts, who spent much of her life on the Hill. Cokie, my impression at the end of the campaign was whichever man won, the members of the other party were not going to be nearly as cooperative as the candidates told us.
Well, I think that's right. And I think that both houses of Congress are likely to have such narrow margins either way that it's going to be very, very difficult to govern at all and to cross party lines and anything by way of cooperation. One of I would say the single most endangered Democratic incumbent, Rush Holt in New Jersey, appears to be headed toward victory tonight over Dick Zimmer, who held that seat a couple of terms ago. Now, this was one where Rush Holt had gotten elected because he ran against impeachment, and he was elected in the middle of all of that. Then he looked like he was headed straight for defeat. Now he appears to be headed for victory. This is going to be a seat by seat by seat, eking it out to see who has control of the House of Representatives. We probably won't know till tomorrow, Peter.
Well, in fact, I recall you telling me some weeks ago you thought we might not know for some days because one of the things we take into account at every level tonight, of course, is the absentee ballot.
Absentee ballots, write-in voters, write-in ballots in Oregon and Washington. And also, if it really does get down to 1 or 2 votes, then the horse trading begins. And people start getting offered chairmanships and all kinds of other things to see if they'll switch parties. So it could be a while.
Okay. One question for our political director, Mark Halperin, at the moment. 9 o'clock Eastern time coming up very quickly now. A lot of states are going to close. We're going to begin to move west into those states which are stronger for Mr. Bush. What should we be watching for?
Still watch Pennsylvania. In the East, it's really at this point, it's almost the whole election. If Al Gore can win Pennsylvania, he probably only needs to find one more state out there on that map to win this. If he loses Pennsylvania, he can't win.
And where is he looking out there in the West? New Mexico?
New Mexico. He's looking still in some eastern states that we haven't called yet. Maybe Oregon, also in the West. Maybe also Wisconsin. Maybe New Hampshire. He needs to put together 1 or 2 more states to win this. Governor Bush has a good chance to block him.
Okay, that's the key phrase. Mr. Gore has the momentum with him at the moment, but Mr. Bush may still be able to block him. And as we look at our national election polls on some of the major issues which divide people between Mr. Gore and Mr. Bush at this point, the issues, narrowly on top, the economy working for Mr. Gore, taxes, huge plus for Mr. Bush. This is the business of giving people a rebate in part. Personal qualities, they help Mr. Bush. Number 1 is honesty, works 8 in 10 for Mr. Bush. The size of the government debate may help Mr. Bush. We're moving into that part of the country now where the size of government is even more important to many people than it is in the East and in the South. So we're going to break now again for a few minutes to allow our ABC News stations all up and down the line to bring you up to date on those local races. We'll go away and try to plan this next very big poll closing at 9 o'clock. I'm Peter Jennings. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back very shortly.
Chris was like my shadow. She was always there. For 3 years, she'd drive down from her job at Kraft to tutor me. My grades went way up.
For 40 years, the Philip Morris companies, including Kraft, have given to programs like Chicago's Off the Street Club, and our employees have volunteered their time to help make a difference in people's lives.
When she left to have a baby, I told her I hoped she'd have a daughter. She already did a great job helping to raise a son.
Working to make a difference, the people of Philip Morris.
Transportation advances again. The re-engineered, redesigned Chrysler Town & Country. The best minivan ever. During the Chrysler Holiday Sale, get 4.9 financing on Town & Country LX or low lease rates.
Tomorrow, The Drew Carey Show. Live. 3 time zones. Live. Big surprises. Live. And now a sneak peek. Live. Hello, anyone there? Oh, yeah. It's live. Drew Carey. Live. In 3 time zones. See you tomorrow on ABC.
First, fast, accurate. News 2's coverage of the 2,000 votes continues now.
Good evening, everyone. Polls have been closed here in Tennessee for about an hour. Welcome back to our 2,000 vote coverage. We have some results in from what Tennesseans are doing tonight.
Yes, we do. Let's go straight to the board and take a look at how Tennesseans are voting tonight. And that there is the big race. As you see, Al Gore, it looks like he is winning his home state, but not by much.
Early numbers, as you can tell, about 200,000 for the vice president, about the same roughly for George W. Bush. We're expecting 2.2 or more million voters, so these are early projections. We also have 2 other candidates in the presidential race who are picking up some votes in Tennessee. Ralph Nader, 1% with 4,000. Patrick Buchanan, no percentage points, but got 800 votes. As we said, these are early numbers. We don't know where they're coming from yet, but there's still a lot more to come here in Tennessee because we're expecting about 2 to 2.2 million voters to be voting here tonight.
This is true. On the national scale, we do want to let you know this is just in. CNN is projecting that Al Gore is the winner in Pennsylvania.
Let's talk to our analyst, and Ann Holt over in the Satellite Center to talk about these numbers in the presidential race. Ann?
All right, Bob, thank you very much. Steve Gill, Tommy Burnett joining me tonight. In addition to the numbers being very early as to how Tennesseans have voted, we don't know where they're coming from. And Tommy, you made an observation that in looking at the numbers that we have gotten on the state Senate and the state House, we've not seen anything from West Tennessee.
We've not seen anything hardly at all from West Tennessee, particularly in Shelby County, which is where Congressman Ford is, and which has historically been a very Democratic stronghold. So I would really want to see some votes at how is Gore running in downtown Shelby County, Memphis, Tennessee, before I really know where that whole vote situation is. It's too early, I think, Ann.
The state legislative races we're seeing seem to be rural districts, both in Upper East Tennessee and some in kind of eastern, southeastern Tennessee as well. Nothing really much from any of the urban areas that we can tell from the state legislative races, so it is too early to tell there.
The closest we've got to Memphis is John Tanner. And he is a congressman, of course, and we see his votes, but we haven't seen anything from Fords.
And we know that voter turnout was real heavy today, and some people could still be standing in line waiting to vote across the state.
Absolutely. The polls close at 7, but if you're in line, you're staying there till you can vote. So it could be 8:30 or 9 o'clock in some of those long lines precincts that.
And this is a good time to talk about why the state Senate and the legislative races are so important. One word. What is it?
Reapportionment.
And that means you're going to draw those lines.
You're going to redraw the
again.
lines, state House lines, state Senate lines, congressional lines. So it really, for the next 10 years, sets the balance of power in the state of Tennessee and makes it harder to win in districts that these guys, if they're in control, may draw a little bit worse for the Republicans than we might draw for them if we had it the other way.
What a horrible suspect idea.
You've never drawn any of those lines, have you?
If they were not, they wouldn't. You know what it's going to mean whether or not Bart Gordon's going to have a safe seat. It's going to mean whether or not Van Hillary and all of the other congressmen that we've got across the state are going to be able to run in what we call safe seats or not. Same thing's true with the legislature. We redistrict, or the legislature redistricts every Senate seat, every House seat.
Tommy,
it's
a
big business.
whole lot at stake, and that's why we're going to watch it throughout the night. Bob, Brett?
Those congressional winners, too, will determine possibly who's going to be running for governor in 2 years here in Tennessee.
This is very true. All of these early results are causing a little bit of cheering to go on down at Legislative Plaza. For more on that, let's go live to News 2's Chris Bungard.
Actually, a lot of cheering going on. The crowd is not in here yet, but we can hear them probably, though they're probably 300 to 500 feet away from where we are. But every time another state goes up in the Gore column, you can hear the cheers. The latest one, of course, CNN is projecting Pennsylvania, and I also believe Maine. I'll have to check that. So we'll be back here in a little bit, let you know more about what's happening, catch the mood down here, which is definitely upbeat at the Gore headquarters, the Gore rally down at Legislative Plaza. Back to you.
Is the crowd growing down there, Chris?
Well, it's hard to, we're only looking at behind us here where they're hoping to fit everybody in, but it looks like they're going to have an overflow crowd once they let the people in. I believe it's going to be about 8 o'clock down
All right,
here.
Chris, we'll talk with you in just a bit. Tennessee Republicans, they are watching the returns tonight down at the Wild Horse Saloon.
And that's where we find News 2's Dan McDonald. Dan?
Yeah, Brett and Bob, with all the emphasis on the presidential election, we forget there was a Senate election in Tennessee today. The winner of that election by an easy margin, U.S. Senator Bill Frist. He is at the podium now. Let's go to him live and hear what he's got to say.
Your participation in our campaign, by being here tonight, by watching tonight, by working the polls, all make us here tonight a part of something that is much greater than ourselves. That something's a big concept, a concept that's bigger than any of us as individuals. It's a concept that our military fought for just 3 weeks ago. It is all-powerful, and it will determine the future. That American dream of you and your family, that concept is the word freedom. It is represented by our American flag. It is represented by your vote today. We just completed a 40-county bus tour, starting in Mountain City, ending in Memphis, and that word freedom came up again, and again, coupled with those words of caring, integrity, and family. On this bus tour, we saw freedom at its best at the Black Fox Elementary School in Bradley County, where we heard again and again that teachers want the freedom to be able to teach students in a way unshackled by Washington. At the Johnson City Senior Clinic over in Washington County, we were reminded to give our seniors the freedom to choose the prescription drugs and the health care plan they deserve. In Murfreesboro, just the other day on our bus tour at the Reeves Sane Pharmacy, small businesses again and again told us that they want the freedom to be free of taxes, and yes, we will cut your federal taxes. And we finished that bus tour going across to Memphis, 40 counties at the Civil Rights Museum, where again we celebrated as a family that struggle, that ultimate struggle for freedom. And using that caring and that integrity and that family, I pledge to you to fight every day in the United States Senate for that concept, that principle of freedom. Our campaign was carried to all 95 counties. There's so many of you who are here tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you. Caring, it goes back to what Mother and Dad taught us, my two brothers and two sisters who are behind us so many years ago. Integrity, and yes, we're going to fight to make sure that honor and integrity is restored to the White House. And family, my wonderful family who is behind me, who has given me the strength to serve you in the United States Senate. I pledge to you, each of you tonight, to fulfill my responsibilities to our family, to our community, and to Tennessee. One first tonight, with the re-election of Fred Thompson 4 years ago, and with the re-election on behalf of all of you tonight, this is the first time in
very happy Senator Bill Frist, obviously, thanking his supporters for putting him back in office. Interesting moment here earlier in the night, though. When Governor Don Sundquist took the podium, he was roundly booed. He said, I thought this was a celebration, but people are still angry about his support for an income tax. Even his Republican supporters still mad about that. Back to you in the studio.
Very interesting moment as Senator Frist wins his second term in office. On the podium, you saw not only Governor Sundquist, but former Governor Lamar Alexander, former presidential candidate, former Governor Winfield Dunn, and U.S. Senator Fred Thompson, and Governor being booed. Not a good move there at the Wild Horse Saloon.
Well, let's go ahead and take a break. Back with more of the 2000 vote in 1 minute.
Life is full of hassles. Having genital herpes is one of mine. I used to take Zovirax 5 times a day. That was a real hassle. Then my doctor told me about Valtrex, just twice a day.
Just another day. Valtrex for genital herpes outbreaks. FDA approved for just twice a day. Nothing in my way. Valtrex is made by the same company as Zovirax and is the same kind of medicine. But each dose of Valtrex puts more medicine into your bloodstream, so it lasts longer and you don't have to take it as often. Common side effects for Zovirax and Valtrex are headache and nausea.
There were so many times when I forgot to take my pills. Twice a day is so much easier.
Remember, there is no cure for herpes, and even with treatment, it may be possible to spread herpes to others. To avoid a potentially serious complication, tell your doctor if your immune system is not normal because of advanced HIV disease, bone marrow, or kidney transplant. Call for a free trial coupon and ask your doctor about Valtrex.
Valtrex just twice a day. I can handle that.
Nothing in my way.
Watch Brett Lee at 10 p.m. only on News 2.
One update to tell you about. ABC News is now projecting in the state of New York, Hillary Rodham Clinton will defeat Rick Lazio for the Senate seat there.
Well, if you want to get into Legislative Plaza tonight, you have to have a ticket. But earlier tonight, it was a different story.
The plaza was open to everyone, and many just couldn't wait to get in. News 2's Melissa A.